Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the NGA podcast, your go-to source for all things gymnastics. I'm your host, Rebecca Grady, and I'm here with my incredible co-hosts,
Dr. Ian Kreider.
Rob Axelrod.
All right, so we're at this point in the year where everything starts to shift. Summer training is wrapping up, school's kicking back in, and suddenly the countdown to meet season feels a little bit closer. So for most of us, this means maybe adjusting our training schedules, managing tired athletes now, and finding ways to keep practice productive without burning anyone out. So in today's episode, we're going to be breaking down how we're all managing this transition to school season and preseason, and what it looks like in our different areas of expertise. So let's talk about where everyone's at right now. I know all our gyms run a little bit different. I know that you two are pretty much on a similar calendar, but what are you guys doing right now to help jump into preseason?
Cool. So we start season unofficially like middle of December. We have our first kind of meet. All the judging and scores are legitimate, but for the upper levels, if they need to flip a vault into the pit or into a mat on the pit, it's actually hosted at a gym. And so if they need to kind of take it easy on some of their landings, then they can. So that's really cool, and we're looking forward to that for some of our new upper levels this year. But we really start at beginning to middle of January. That's like our first legitimate meet. So right now, I kind of gave my gymnasts a general timeline throughout the summer, where June was like, you should be working drills for the skills that you want. And then July is like, you should be doing the skills, but probably with a spot. August, you should have it pretty much by yourself. But if you need a spot here or there, you need me to stand there, whatever it is, that's kind of what August is all about. And then September was, let's get your skills by yourself, because we start routines on October 26th. It starts off easy and gets harder. So right now we're in the mode of, if you have it by yourself, let's start playing add-on, especially like on bars and beam, where, hey, if you make your series, then do your turn. If you make your turn, then try a leap, right? And then on bars, if you make your kip cast handstand, then do your clear hip handstand. And if you make that, then go ahead and, do your toe circle out and jump to the high bar. But we just kind of start playing a little bit of add-on, a little bit of bar endurance right now. And for our strength and conditioning, we're in a power cycle. We just finished up about 4 weeks ago. We finished up our strength cycle of just getting them really, really strong. And now I'm working on turning them into actual explosive gymnasts. And it's all good if you can, lift your mom's minivan. But if it takes you 10 years to do it, doesn't do you any good, right? So I want them to be able to move quickly and have that explosive power. So that's what we're focused on right now with our strength and conditioning.
Yeah, we're quite similar there on most everything, except our first real competition is always the first weekend in December, last day or two in November. That's our Liberty Cup, and we don't have to be full on at that meet, but I like to use it as like the eye opener, like, hey, summer went great, I'm on point, or, oh my gosh, I got to get back to the drawing board, I have more work to do. From a coaching standpoint as well, we want to see how well we prepared our athletes over the summer. This summer was a little bit difficult, I feel, for our athletes. Some of the level 9s and 8s are going through some growth spurts, so they didn't get as much out of summer as they wanted to, but we kept doing gymnastics, and that's important, and I think it's important to talk to the coaches out there about that. When your athletes are going through their growth spurts, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, she looks really tall, or wow, she looks like she put some muscle on, but they're dealing with grew 3 inches, or some cases 5 inches. And I think that, over the years, I do a better job with just enforcing the fact that just training, right? It doesn't have to be exactly where you wanted to be or what skill you were working on, but we're transitioning out of our strength phase into our power phase as well. We begin half routines. We started dance through routines on floor because a lot of kids are getting their new routines anyway. So we wanted to start those in August, or as soon as they get their routine, show it off to everybody in the gym. And then every day they go to floor, do a routine. Things are a little different for us in the summer. We don't have a day off. They do 4 in a row. During the year, we do 2 on, 1 off, 2 on. And so we're already back to Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Most of the kids, 90%, started school yesterday. And so it's a nice transition for them to get back on their new schedule, figure it out. Day group, now is not at 8:30 in the morning. It's now back at 1:30 in the afternoon. The evening groups are not 3 to 6 anymore. Now they're 6 to 9. They're their time has changed. And in the same token, with preparing for going into the fall schedule, we talked about their nutrition. We did a big nutrition swing this year and got the kids really into the fueling their bodies when they were at gym or when they weren't at gym. Now they're not just full tilt outside all day long after gym or before gym. They're now back in a classroom. Doesn't mean that they need to take away food, but they need to think about when are they doing their fueling and where am I getting those meals in, because school's not as easy as it is when I'm at my friend's house or I'm at home. When am I going to get my meal? So those are some important things that we talked about too. But I think the most important is we've started, like I said, I'll back up a little bit about our floor routines with dance throughs. This week we added in one pass. Next week, maybe we'll add in sprint routines. And on bars, we're trying to get to half routines. And on beam, we're trying to do some more skill set. Like Ian said, if you make your full turn and then you're going to your flight series and you made your flight series, go to your leap. You made your leap, go to your acro. Okay, you fell on your acro, we'll stop there. Then on your next turn, maybe you start up at your acro and go acro to your dismount. Vault, we stay the same. We go uphill twice a week and we flip twice a week. But on all the days that we go uphill and all the days that we flip, we have an air track and a T trainer that goes into a free foam pit with a mat on top. So they're flipping all day, but over there, non-pounding trampoline top on the vault, which is the T trainer. Air track was for their ankles and their knees and whatnot, and they're landing on very soft landings. In our gym, we don't have a hard landing anyway. They land on a resi. I stiffen it up by putting some 4 inches, getting ready to get out there for competition. I'm sure that most of you coaches out there know, you're like, oh, you've been in the pit all summer long and now you got to get on the floor. So we started doing some flip stick drills or even just some flip drills off of different surfaces onto the hard floor and onto different landings. So like we'll do an 8-inch landing, a floor landing, a sting mat landing. It'll be off a board, off a panel mat, off the air track. So kind of like a flip circuit, either during floor or at the end of practice, just to get them, so to speak, their legs back for landings on harder surfaces or different surfaces, right? That's probably a pretty good shot about what our transition looks like going from summer to fall.
Yeah.
Our plyometrics are going to be out as of October 31st. We don't do plyos during season.
Yeah, good.
Okay. I'm going to come back to that, but there's a number of things that I kind of want to discuss before that you had talked about. First, I know that Ian does this as well, but I love that you guys take off some practice when the transition is going into school. I know a lot of gyms don't do that, and I think that can be really hard on the gymnasts. They're just coming in and their brain is just fried.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think it's really important when we're going back to take into consideration when their school starts, and that last little bit of Labor Day weekend, make it a 4-day weekend. Real good transition from like, wow, we're back at school. We're getting up at such and such a time and we're going to school all day and we're coming to gym all day and we're getting home at 9 o'clock at night and our eating habits have changed. And you know what? Take the weekend off, regroup, get ready for the next week, and it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's so hard, especially when you're changing your training time too. They're getting up earlier, going to school, and then they're training a lot later. So their body has to get used to that transition of when they're actually using it versus, sitting in school and thinking.
Yeah, like even our day group, they were 8:30 to 1 every day, and now they're 1:30 to 5:30. So we shortened their practice time a little bit, and it's changed what time that they're going to be in the gym too. So.
Okay, so I was going to ask, since the transition this time of year can be a lot with school and training changes, what have you noticed about how your gymnasts adjust in the gym? Do you see any changes in their attitude or work ethic as the schedule shifts?
Yeah. Our girls started school. They are on their 4th week of school now, I believe. We started almost a month ago. So we didn't take time completely off this year. Instead, we just did like some really easy practices, just because the timing was a little bit weird this year. And so we just did like, hey, this week is like basics week. And if you need to leave early, if you need to come late, if you don't want to work on your hard skills, it's not a problem. Let's work some handstands and shaping and kips and casts and round offs and tumble track and stuff like that. So we just took it really easy that week, which seemed to go pretty well. I would say by maybe the end of last week, beginning of this week, they are finally acting like their old selves again. And I mean
So
the
about
older
a month
girls too.
transition.
About a
Yeah.
month, yeah. I would say even the older girls, they were just like angry for the first couple of weeks of just having to go back to school and everything was awful and the whole world was terrible. And so they're finally starting to kind of get some pep back in their step, and you can see them coming back around, and that's been fun to see. But yeah, there for a while it's like, all right, how's everybody today? And they're like, oh, Logan in my class, blah, 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 whatever. So get to hear about all that. And it was like, all right, and now we're at the gym. So let's go ahead and have a good, productive day, right? But it's starting to come around. They're starting to adjust their schedule and things are going.
Yeah, it's a little bit different for each part of the country. Ian's back to school 4 weeks. I mean, that doesn't even compute being from the Northeast most of my life.
Right.
We don't go back to school, actually here in PA, not Jersey, but man, they go back to school before Labor Day. And usually back in Jersey, it depended. Most of the time we went back to school after Labor Day. And so it was a little bit different. But so that makes a difference too. Like I say, he's got 4 weeks on me of getting these kids back into their old routine. And summer used to be longer. I felt like early June we started our summer practices and we'd have 3 months of summer practice. And logistically, we have 7 weeks of our summer schedule. By the time we give them the team vacation week off and then the extra vacations that they take, some kids out of the 7 weeks of summer schedule that we offer, they did 4. They had 3 weeks vacation. So it's like, and that's great. We want the kids and the parents to take vacations because gymnastics is a priority, but it's not the way it used to be. It's not the end all do all. Like you can't have vacation. You're going to take vacation, then you're off the team. I mean, that just doesn't happen anymore. But back in the day,
still know some gyms that do that, or I've heard of some gyms that do that.
I know plenty of gyms that do that, or that there's
grief.
It's just terrible. But we want the kids to have vacations, but if they want to be a certain level, like level 9 or 10 or something like that, and this is their transition year for it, and like the parents are going away for a 3-week trip because their brother have a soccer tournament in Peru, I don't know, whatever. One year it was Croatia. Well, I know. Well, one year was Croatia for 3 weeks, and then like last year, I think the same boys went to Spain for 3 weeks. So it's like, you can't take your sister with you. She's going to miss 3 weeks of gymnastics.
Right.
But technically, yes, you can do whatever you want to do. So we have to keep an eye on those just to make sure that the kids are transitioning better. And I think if you want to really plan for your kids to not have a huge transition back, is get them to get up at a decent time.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we were teenagers. I was always up early at a paper route. So, I was up at 5 a.m. delivering papers. And it stayed like that year round for me. So my schedule didn't really get to change much. But these kids, they have to be at gym at 1, they'll sleep till noon. And then, come rolling in here like they just rolled out of bed. Like, did you just roll out of bed? Yeah. Did you eat? No.
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
You haven't eaten in 18 hours.
18 hours because you went to bed at, So, but I think the group of girls that I have in here doing day group is a little easier transition because they were getting up early and doing gymnastics, and then they had the rest of the day.
Yeah.
The other kids, they were here by 3, so that was kind of cool. So they got their bodies up and going, before 3 o'clock. Some of them were working for us, doing camp in the morning, rec camp, and then transitioning right into their workouts. So that also helps with their transition from summer to fall. I think that fall schedule, regardless, it's going to be a little more taxing on their bodies, even though it's not the same physical activity. Does that make sense? And especially speaking to you about it, it's their brains. They're stressing out more with school. They're working harder, using their brains to do homework. They're stressing out about gymnastics. We just added stressors to their lives. Last year, our motto was no stress, no stress, no stress. And, the more I said it, the more release of stress we had, but there's no such thing. And we talked about that yesterday before they went home. Like, you have to learn how to deal with stress. You have to learn how to work through stress, and you have to learn how to lessen your stress. And those are the 3 things I sent them out of the gym with yesterday. So I think that's something to really pay attention to, especially you younger coaches who may have forgot what it's like. I have a schedule, and I'm sure Dr. Ian and Miss Rebecca over there, you all have your schedules that you get up with your children. So you're up early during the day. It doesn't matter. It could, Christmas Day, or it could be August 8th, and your schedules really don't change. So for us as adults, our schedules are kind of the same. You have a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old, they're getting up at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. every day. These 12 and 13 to 18-year-old kids, it's a little harder on their bodies for their change, especially too that they're growing. They might feel more tired. They might be a little bit more sore. So I think maybe that's a nice transition to move over to some prehab stuff that we have started really to introduce, because for the most part, when I say we do a great job of our gymnasts not getting injured, those kids that are growing are the ones that have some nagging pain, nothing crazy, but a knee, an ankle, a wrist, and elbows bothering me. And 90% of the time it's not from overtraining, especially here. We don't train so many hours that they would have that problem, but they're growing, and maybe they're under fueling. So maybe that's something we talk about real quick with
Yeah.
you there?
Well, I'd say, when you think about off-season training, you really are only worried about two things. You're just trying to get them really strong, so you're strength and conditioning, and you're worried about your new skill acquisition, right? And so when we start transitioning into like this time and maybe even a month from now, when they really start getting into routine work, we add a third thing because hopefully they're still working some new skills as you get into routines because you never really stop learning skills, and the older they get and the more advanced levels they get, the longer sometimes skills get to, take to get and perform in front of a judge. And so you're still working new skills, hopefully through the season. You're still working some strength and conditioning, but that probably changes to more of a maintenance phase. Like Rob was saying, he stops plyometrics, which is good during season. And so we're probably still doing strength and conditioning, but just at a different pace, different level of intensity. But then we add in routines, and routines is a huge portion of our training. It's not like, oh, well, let's just kind of sprinkle in some routines here, right? It's like, and now we do routines. And then
Mhm.
also, I forgot you need to work on this skill too, right? So we have a huge transition into routines, and so the level of stress on their body doesn't just change; it increases because routines are highly repetitive forces. You're usually doing them on more firm surfaces. You might not vault on hard every day or maybe ever, depending on what you guys do, but there's only so many ways to get a floor routine done without landing on hard surfaces. You're going to be doing hard pounding, repetitive stuff on beam. And so that constant repetitiveness is going to wear down their bodies if you're not being careful about it. And so one thing that I can't stress more to coaches is they need a light week. They need a deload week. And my girls are doing a deload week this week, actually. And what it does, it kind of does two different things. One is it lets their bodies recover, obviously, right? Because you can push, but their bodies aren't going to fully recover typically until they get some time to deload, de-stress, and then they'll fully recover. And that's what that deload week does. But also, it gives you permission and the gymnast permission to push harder during the loading weeks. So during those progressive loading weeks, it gives your gymnast permission to push harder. It gives you permission to push them a little harder because you know that there's going to be a light week coming up. If you never have a light week, your gymnast is always thinking, okay, well, I've got to do this again next week, so I need to pull back a little bit. And hopefully you're thinking that too, although I don't know that all coaches are thinking that. So we need to have a deload week so that way you can go, yes, we can push really, really hard right now on our strength and conditioning because I know next week is deload week and you can relax. And the first couple of days of deload week, they don't look good, right? I'll say like my gymnasts, like Monday, Tuesday of deload week, and they're still dragging. But then by the end of the week, man, they've got that pep back in their step and they're ready to go for another round of 3 weeks of loading. But yeah, and they push harder, I think, because they know they have a deload week.
Yeah, we kind of do that too. We got in here on Monday of their first back to school day, and our standard conditioning that we do every day, and then we add or take away depending on what we're doing extra for the week. It's IYTs or lower back, or there's legs. Like Fridays, we like to try to do a really big leg day because it's off for the weekend. So we did half conditioning, and I'll probably do half conditioning all week, which will be great for them because they were training so
Yep.
hard all summer, and go back to like the bodybuilding days and where, you train 6 months to get ready for a bodybuilding show. And then the week and a half to 10 days before the show, like you're barely training, you're just letting it all
Right.
soak up and all soak in. And they'll come back in here after Labor Day weekend and they'll be fired up, ready to go. And I think a lot of them are excited to be back at school. So they're in this like new frame of mind. They were maybe getting the summer blues a little bit. They were just kind of getting a little bit bored and ready to be back to school. So I look forward to when we go back to school, the kids have a little bit of new enthusiasm. And I think that's really good in the gym too.
My girls did not have that same reaction.
Well, I mean, it depends. You ask 25 of them there lined up and you're like, how'd school go? It sucked. It was terrible. Oh, I can't stand. I can't believe I got to go to school tomorrow. Like, really?
Yeah. So at my gym, we're a Christian-based gym that I work at, and we do open up with prayer every day before practice. And so we always ask the girls if they have any prayer requests, anything. And we have this one little girl, she's maybe 7, I think. So probably that like first-ish grade. And like every day she raises her hand, I'm like, Evie, I'm not praying that school gets canceled tomorrow. You're gonna have to talk to God about that one.
That's you and your personal relationship with God, and he may go for it. I'm not sure, but you can ask him.
That's right.
I honestly love little kids because I have a 7-year-old who keeps thinking that fog is gonna stop from going to school, and it's like,
Oh,
"If
yeah.
it's foggy, if I can't see the school, then I don't have to go there, right?" And it's just like, no, that's not how
Meanwhile,
it
you
works."
live like in the Smoky Mountains,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
it's fog
yeah.
all the time.
It's foggy all the time.
Well,
Yeah, that's
that's
very
how
true.
that's how I know I still have a kid mentality. Like a big thunderstorm hits, I'm like, oh, maybe like gymnastics will be canceled today.
Yeah, if there's lightning, they'll
Well,
cancel
there's
it.
lightning, we can't do beam.
Right, right. Oh my
That's the
gosh.
kids' mentality.
See,
I'm
my
like,
my
let's go
mentality is
outside
from
and
when
bring the beams with us. No, just
my mentality is from when I was a gymnast, where it was like snow days meant school was canceled, but we
gonna
got to
spend
like
more
go into
time
the
in the
gym
gym. Yeah,
early,
yeah.
and it was always a fun day in the gym because you're like, oh, I should be in school, but I get to be in the gym doing cool stuff. So I was like, oh, snow day, can I make it? We can make it. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, that's I always say. People say, is gymnastics canceled today? Well, classes are canceled, or there's a snow day today. But what about team? Well, I'll be at the gym. If you want to come in, come on in. It's a great
If you can
time.
make it, let's go.
Don't
Yeah,
put
That's
yourself
if I
great.
can make it into the
don't put
gym,
yourself in
no one has
danger,
an
but I'll
excuse.
be there.
That's right, because I have like this huge hill that I live on, and if I can make it off my hill, we're good.
Okay, so with school starting and the gymnast coming back, how do you guys build enthusiasm? Because I know they're low in energy. Ian, I know you mentioned using add-on balance beam. Do you turn that into a game so your gymnasts are more engaged?
Yeah, so I just started that this year. Everybody's probably heard of like add-on on trampoline, where
Yeah.
everybody adds a skill on, and if you miss a skill or forget it or fall or whatever, then you're out. So we started doing that on Beam, and we've got usually like 8 to 10 kids in the group, and we'll divide them up into 2 groups, one on each high beam, and they play add-on. And so somebody does a full turn, and the next person does full turn to a split leap, and then right, and then, so they just kind of keep going until they knock everybody out, and it was pretty fun. And that's usually what we do during like our deload weeks or our light weeks, is we have a little bit more fun. We play games. We warm up with games instead of our traditional warm up, running around the floor in arm circles and all that, right? And we'll do different contests. Like yesterday's contest was on bars, on strap bar from a dead hang, who can get into their first giant with the least amount of swings. And so they had to do like a traditional boys like underswing tap and go, and then see who could get it around within the fewest amount of swings. So that was pretty fun. It kind of challenged them to really figure out how to work the tap and work the giant. I would ideally have loved our deload week to be our first week of school, so that way they could have some excitement there, but just
Yeah.
that's not how it worked out this year. But now they got it this week, and yeah, they're super pumped about it. Instead of our upper body conditioning like we normally do, they did like a handstand walk contest where we set up all kinds of mats and parallettes and stuff, and they got to try and walk the obstacle course. And I always try and jump in with them and do it too, and so they get a good laugh out of that.
I kind of like,
Good to have little contests and things.
I like our fall
Yeah.
schedule. We come in on Mondays, and I wouldn't say we're light every Monday, but we're lighter than Tuesday, and Tuesday is a harder day, and then they're off on Wednesday, and then back on Thursday a little bit later, and then pump it up on Friday, and then they're off for 2 days. So I kind of really like our schedule. It fits my motif well for our athletes, and it seems to work well for our program. I do think I'd like to do a little bit more flipping, but like I'm trying to, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Yeah, that's pretty much our transition stages. And, we're hoping by November 1st, we're at, full blown routines at least every day or every other day. Like I watch the college kids, that don't have pits in their gym, have like 3 resis off the floor, and they have like the carpet. So they have like, say, 3 panels worth of tumbling, right? And so they'll do their whole routine in one panel, all of the dance and
Right.
all of the tumbling. And so they're just going back and forth in the same panel, but there's no
Right.
stopping the music for them to tumble. They just come out of the pit and they continue, and they don't go across the floor. They just go up and down in the one panel. And I watched some kids that went out to college and came back, and they were doing that. I'm like, I like that. So, I
Yeah.
might try that this year with the girls.
Yeah, so a little bit of a topic shift, but do you all start incorporating any specific mental training strategies around this time of year? Maybe things like managing pressure or expectations? It just seems like that can feel a bit more intense right now, especially with the start of season feeling overwhelming and school for some of these athletes.
By mental training, do you mean like voodoo magic? What do you? No, just kidding.
Obviously, yes. Yes, do you have magic?
Yeah. Sure.
No, so
We
go for it, Rob.
We instituted some deep breathing this year, and it's working well with the kids after practice, and they're doing it at home as well as I try to do a little bit before before bedtime, especially if I'm struggling myself to go to sleep and I start a little deep breathing. Next thing you know, I might wake up at 2 in the morning, but at least it worked. It put me to sleep. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel
Yeah.
sorry, you can go.
Nope. Do it.
Well, I think, like you asked, like, did we institute anything new in our mental training? But I think, through our mental training with our goal sheets and like little calendars that they put inside their lockers this year. And we did a calendar for each one of the months, June or July, August, and September. We put up charts around the gym for the skills that they need for the levels that they're on, and they could check off a skill. So I wouldn't say that's new mental training, but it's certainly having them thinking harder about their skills and what can I do to make those things happen.
Yeah.
I think we could definitely add some more mental training. I'm pretty sure we talked about this early on. We do active mental training so that
Yeah.
they walk through their beam routine or they walk through their floor routine. Just like when we mark our corners at timed warm-ups. Like if you have the whole floor for timed warm-ups and you spend 20 minutes or 15 minutes, 7 or 8 minutes is spent on tumbling, and okay, my tumbling's all warmed up and now I'm going to go dance my corners and see visually where I'm going to be in this gym, in this setting. And then some of the other mental training I think it goes along with is we make them change their corners. So how you do that, you do a sprint routine with 3 sprints. So now you're in the wrong corner for the next pass. You got to figure out where am I going next. So that introduces some more mental training for them to try to figure out how to think on their toes. I think it's all those little things that I'd love to be able to share with other people because people shared them with me and I've used them ever since.
Well, and it's good mixing up the corners too, because especially gymnasts, we get very focused on things being exactly the same, and we get a lot of anxiety when things change. So I feel the more we can do that in the gym, it makes it so much easier to transition to an actual competition. Everybody freaks out about the beam feeling weird,
Oh.
the springboard not being as springy, or the bars feeling different. So all of those things can really affect them. And the more they get comfortable with being uncomfortable, helps them transition so much more. So I like that you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, all
especially with our
summer,
beams, everybody's got a beam in their gym that nobody likes to go on, and ours, there's a pole next to it.
Yes.
They're like, oh, I'm going on the pole beam? I'm like, yeah, you have a beam routine on every routine. Oh, I'm going to hit the pole. I'm like, well, only if you fall off. It just, hey, don't fall off. It's it's a padded pole. You'll be okay.
Yeah. You bounce right off. Yeah, we just finally got to where we have multiple high. Like last year, we technically had 2 high beams, and then we had like a low beam and a knee high beam, and so now we have like a section of low beams and knee high beams, and we have a section of high beams. And so all summer, I've been warning my gymnasts, hey, you're gonna have routines on all 3 high beams this year, just so you know. And they're like, oh, but this one's slippery. This is my favorite one. Blah. I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
You got beam routines on all three beams this year. So
Well, throw it out to them. And if it's slippery, how do you solve that problem?
you need chalk on your feet. They're like,
Exactly.
yeah. So we figured out how to do that. And,
Do you need to wipe your hands off?
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
we need to do?
yeah.
Just be
So
careful,
there's-
all you people out there that do allow chalk on your beams, because it just makes them slipperier. So just be careful. Like if I hate to use the word limit, but they know that they can't overdo chalk. But when they get to the meet, they're like, oh, it's not our beams. We could do whatever we want. I'm like, yeah, go nuts.
Looks like it
Chalk it
snowed
up.
on the beam.
Whatever you
That's
gotta do.
right. That's right.
So some of the things that I do when it's this time of season, like I see a ton of anxiety and mental blocks starting to pop up just because of pressure, like
Mhm.
the perceived pressure, the deadlines of pressure. So like we break down what could be perceived pressure, and then we also break down how pressure's not always bad. Just because we have deadlines in our gym doesn't mean it's bad. It's just helps us learn how to cope with it differently. So we talk about that, kind of normalize it for them. And then I start the deep breathing. Well, I usually do that through the summer, depending on who I'm working with. But we start the visualization process now. In the gym, the only time that I do the laying down visualization is at the end of practice. Everything's are cooled down. We do it together, like a good way to lead practice. But I actually start with visualizing things that they feel safe and comfortable doing. I call it a happy place. We start there, and then we transition into visualizing our gym and our skills routines and stuff like that. So it becomes a process and it becomes more detailed as they get more experience with it, and then learning how to successfully do them. But those are the things that I've been working on, and building confidence obviously is something that it's all the time. But dealing with all those extra stressors, what's in their control versus out of their control.
Yeah, I think the confidence thing is something that I work on just constantly.
Yeah.
Right. Where I try and kind of push little comments here and there that are positive, confidence building comments. To the contrary, that's what a lot of coaches do unknowingly, right? Is they'll say little comments that destroy confidence.
Yes.
And sometimes it sounds like it's joking or lighthearted, I guess would be the right word, not joking. Sometimes it's kind of a lighthearted, and sometimes it's like, hey, look, you're really good at this. I need you to know that. But then sometimes it's like, hey, you know what? You're a pretty good gymnast. Nice jump. And so just little things that bring them to kind of the realization of like, hey, can you please see what I see in you? Like, that would be amazing. If you could just see what I see, holy moly, we'd rule the world. We'd
Yeah,
be just fine.
if I could back off of having to do that so constantly, and
Right.
their negativity and it really throws me for a loop because we're so not negative, and it's like, where does this
Right.
come from? And it's like, it's
Yeah.
self-driven. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
please stop. I can't make a cast handstand. Well, you keep telling yourself that, and you're right. You're not going to be able to
Right.
make a cast
Absolutely.
handstand. Come on, let's not talk about that. Like, let's not even put the negative thoughts into our heads, and let's just move forward. And they're like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
look,
So
they
I
just
did
blank stare.
I pulled a Rob and actually did like a full on talk before practice the other day.
Ooh,
And I know, and I talked to them about Roger Bannister. Do you guys know who that is?
No.
I don't
So
know.
Roger Bannister was the man who was the first one to run a sub 4 minute mile.
Oh yeah, I knew something.
And so it's a really cool story. So there's kind of two things you can get out of or two directions you can take the Roger Bannister story. So one direction is like kind of the fun PT way. Then the other way is more the mental training side that, it's okay. So the fun PT way, right, is, well, Roger Bannister was training for this sub 4 minute mile, and he was basically just pushing himself as hard as he could, as hard as he could, as hard as he could, and he just wasn't getting any better. And so he was like, forget it. I'm just going to take some time off. Maybe I'll come back to it. Maybe I won't. He took I think 2 weeks off. He's like, all right, let me come back to it. And he was faster when he came back after 2 weeks. And so that's the cool recovery side of things.
That's the
much,
whole thing we just talked about, right? Letting it all soak in, all that training,
Yep.
and then let's
Yes.
go. It's game day.
Yep, exactly. But what I was really getting at with them is, so the gym I'm at, it's had one level 10 over the last few years, but it's just because the focus of the gym wasn't that, right? It was more of hey, let's see what you can do. If you need to miss 3 days this week because of school stuff, that's fine. And so we've transitioned to hey, if you want to achieve college gymnastics, that's what we want to do for you. And so a lot of these girls that are coming up have never seen level 10 gymnastics in the gym, or maybe even true level 9 gymnastics in the gym. Maybe they've seen it on occasion on a floor pass or part of beam, but true level 9, true level 10 gymnastics, they've only seen at competitions or, when they go to camps or something like that. And so for them, it might seem like an impossibility. And so I brought up this Roger Bannister story for them because when Roger Bannister was training for that, so the record, I believe, and somebody can tell me in the comments if I got it wrong, but I believe for close to 20 years, the record stood at just above 4 minutes. So it was 4:01 something. And no one thought that you could beat the 4 minute. They thought that was an impossible bridge to get over.
Didn't he run a
And
3:58 or something?
he was 3:59 something. He was
Yeah.
just under the 4 minute mark. But there was even a doctor at the time, or several doctors at the time, that said, hey, if you run a sub 4 minute mile, your heart will explode and you'll die. Right.
Interesting.
And they came out with these scientific studies, and this is why you'll die if you run a sub 4 minute mile. So for 20 years, everybody was like, well, I'll just beat this guy. I'm not going to worry about trying to beat that mark. And so Roger was like, well, I'm just going to give it a shot. Apparently he didn't have much to
see if my
lose, I
heart
guess. I don't know.
explodes.
But anyway, so he did it. And so he trained for it and he ran it, and it wasn't even under ideal circumstances, but he was still able to run the sub 4 minute mile. And his record stood 46 days. And so that's a point to bring up to them. It's hey, there's going to be a lot of reasons why you can't do it, but you probably can. And as soon as you do it, it gives someone else permission to be able to do it as well, right? As soon as you make it to level 10, 3 more people can make it to level 10. And so are you going to be the one that pushes yourself and gets over that hurdle, and you're going to be the first one that leads the way for everybody else? I think it's a really motivational story. And then since then, over 2,000 men have run a sub 4 minute mile.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so it just kind of goes to show you, it's hey, there's going to be reasons why you can't, but there's always going to be a reason why you can, and you got to focus on that reason.
Yeah, that you're the top of the top after hundreds of years of people running and shaving off time of the mile, and it lasted for 46 days.
46 days. Yeah.
What's that old
Yeah.
saying? There's only one place to go when you're at the top, and that's down.
That's right. Yeah, and
Let's
and
not
what I
use that.
brought up,
Let's not use that one in the gym, though.
right, yeah. But and I bring up the 46 days thing too because I'm going, hey, in 46 days they didn't have time to train
They
for
just
that,
went for
right?
it. Let
They
me
just
push as hard as I can.
they just thought, yeah, exactly. They just
Motivation.
pushed. Yep,
Talk about some
exactly.
mental training on yourself. Like, just get
Oh
yourself
my
psyched up
gosh,
to just
yes.
go, and I'm gonna do this.
Yep.
Like that. I always forget his name, but I watched his climbing story. The guy that free climbs. It was just incredible. It's like he wakes up one day and the camera crew's on site and it's a documentary and he's going to free climb this whatever. And he's got these two people that go with him. And like just one day he gets up and like he started out, it was going to go and he called it off. And then like, he stayed in this van and he's, getting up and he's on a campground and he's getting ready and he's like going to try again. And then the weather got him. And then just one day he just woke up and he was like feeling good and he's got his stuff and just was real quiet. And then like all the camera people like start scrambling. Like, I think today's the day. I think today's the day. And he just mentally, it was his day and he went and he obviously he didn't fall. He made it, but it's just another one of those things. It's mental preparation. Like you have to know when you're ready, when you're not ready. And I think that's important to take into consideration with this transition phase that we're moving into is be aware of your athlete's mental capacity at the time of this transition. It's a big, some of them are going to high school. Like the one girl told me yesterday, she's a younger sister of an older gymnast in our program. And she said, I'm walking through the hallway. And at one point we're just at a standstill for 5 minutes and nobody could move. And I started to panic and I don't know where I'm going. And I'm on the senior wing and I'm only a freshman in high school. And where am I going? And so they're coming here. And you're like, okay, no mats under the beam today. Only one mat. They're like, it's just like, what did you do?
Throw your series on the high beam today.
Yeah.
You've never done it.
Yeah. Today's the day. What do you mean today's the day? I was panicked in the hallway all day today.
Yeah.
So take that into consideration, your mental capacity of your athletes, and try to remember what it was like when you were a freshman going into a high school. They went from a building that had 2 grades in it to a building that has 4 grades in it, or it was 800 kids in the one building they were in to 2,000 kids. I mean, it's just a big difference for all the kids. And it was not like that when we were around. The population was different. Our school districts were different. We graduated, my high school, 301 was the biggest graduating class at the time ever through this high school. And now kids are graduating with 1,200 kids in their grade level. It's insane out of one school.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have known that if you didn't talk to your gymnast. So, I mean, just overall, obviously, we want to train all of these things. We want to give them the skills to have more mental fortitude and all of this stuff. But if we're not talking to our gymnasts and we don't know them, then we don't know that they had this horrible day at school and that maybe trying to get them to do their series on the high beam today is not the best, solution. We're not going to get the best results. So I think that's so important. All of this together, it's just creating this environment that we can do this stuff together.
Yeah, and then spin that back around to when they are ready to do something or when they're not ready to do something. You're in the gym and we're doing beam and we have it set in our brains that today is our day and we are going on the high beam and we're going to be peeling out mats or we're doing it with no mats or one mat or whatever the thing is. And then the kid is doing back handspring layout step out and they can't get past one back handspring. Put a maximum number on your athletes so that look, this is the assignment, but your max is 10 and let's keep track. Sometimes we just do, let's see how many you can make out of 10. I'll give them 3 skills. So it's 30 tricks that they have to do on beam. That's plenty. It's like flight series, dismount and acro. The next time, maybe it's, flight series and leap and secondary jump or something. I don't know, whatever, right? But let them keep track of those out of 10 and they can say, oh, I got 5 out of 10 or yesterday I got 2 out of 10 and try to do a couple of them in a row so you can get some kind of tracking pattern. And then I always try to tell them that okay, look, it's not happening. You haven't made one and you did 10 and you fell on every one or you never got back handspring stop, back handspring stop, back handspring stop. Why are you stopping? That's 4 back handsprings. You don't want to count those as turns because you never did the flip part of it or you never did the series part of it. But it's like if you did 10 of those back handspring stops and then you do 10 more back handsprings, how many back handsprings are you going to do in a day? How about, hey, let's leave that alone. Let's go to dismounts and come back. And so be aware of your athlete's mental capacity during transitions.
Yes. For sure.
And try and let them know your parameters too, right?
Yeah.
I've been guilty of not doing that where it's like they balk twice on vaults and I'm like, hey, time to move on. But they didn't know that, my number was 2 or whatever that was.
Mine's 3. I do it like baseball. 3 strikes and you're out. If you run down the runway and you don't go because if it's your steps and I need to help you with your steps, that's fine. But if it's because I know you don't want to go or you just pull up and just don't go. And I was listening, somebody was doing a lecture, national team staff, not that long ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and they're like, "Oh, no, I have a one-time balk. You balk once,
Yes.
you're off." And I'm like, "Whoa."
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
But I thought that was like, wow, is that harsh? But then the longer I thought about it, I'm like, maybe it's really not such a bad idea. But everybody's entitled to something. But did you balk or did you mess your steps
Right.
up? You know,
Right.
or
Yeah,
there's
that's a big
there's a big
difference.
difference. Yeah, we were in the UK, and there was a girl from the UK who was struggling with her steps, and they asked me would I take a vault rotation and help out with them. And I got to the point where I did every little trick that I thought I could do in the book, and she was focused so hard on counting her steps, and I said, well, how about this? Just stop counting your steps, and no matter what foot you're on or no matter where you are, just go over the table, because
Right.
the last 6 tries you haven't gone over the table.
Yeah. My girls have stopped real short. Like, oh, my steps are off. I'm like, were they? I don't know. You stopped at from 30
At
feet away
2.
from the table. Like,
Yeah.
3 steps in, I bailed.
yeah. I think either you could have adjusted or you have no idea. Like run to the table at least and let's find out.
Yeah, and we don't want the balking. We don't want to keep stopping because then we're reinforcing that anxiety that we're not capable of doing it. And it's like
Yeah.
you're creating this pattern.
Yeah, it's kind of like on beam. If they have a max of 10 and they did 3 back handsprings and never did the rest of the series, whether it be a flip or another back handspring, okay, get down, go back on a laser beam or go back on a line or go do something else, go work on an extra jump or a turn, or hey, go do some back handstrings uphill and then come back, try again, something like that. But keep that in
Yeah,
mind with your athletes.
I tell them to find success.
It's a
It
good one.
doesn't
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah,
one.
it doesn't have to be maybe even the assignment that I gave them, but find success somewhere. So whether it was on strap bar that
something you
day
do.
or whether it was on low beam, or find somewhere where you can have some success. And so that way you can have something at the end of the day where you go, all right, it may not have been a great day, but I was able to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and
I was just going to say, that's part of he said, oh, I pulled a Rob today. I had a conversation with my athletes, and I went right down the line. What did you like today about school? And someone's like, oh, I didn't. All right, well, we'll come back to you, figure out something that you did like.
gotta
There
find
had
something.
to be something
Yep.
there. We
Yep.
do that at nighttime too. And I think we also talked about it early in our podcast launching about addressing the negative. We always want, a lot of times, I've seen a lot less of this over the summer, and I'm going 100% based on our nutrition talks. I hate to use the word as nutrition, but our fuel talks, like these kids are fueling themselves so much better. They're not wearing out by the end of practice. In fact, they're like, can we stay an extra 10 minutes on bars? That just means that your athletes, our mental capacity is good and their fueling capacity was good. So taking that into consideration, we don't have to address the negative, but so many times when you're lining up, their last event maybe left them with a bad taste in their mouth. And so we don't want that. Hey, look, we don't want you walking out of the gym crying or upset that you didn't do well on the last skill that you did. Let's focus on the 25 things that you did do well instead of the 2 that you didn't do well. And that's important. But then sometimes it's okay. Like, hey, what didn't go well today that you'd like to fix for tomorrow or
And how
do
can we
better
fix it?
tomorrow? And then they'll say what it is. And they go, okay, how can we fix it? You think about what it is and what you think you want to do to fix it. And we'll talk about it tomorrow. So this way they can actually be focused on something that was a negative in their brain, but I'm going to be working on it to fix it as a positive for tomorrow. And how am I going to do that? I had a crappy beam day today. Okay, what can we do to make it better?
It happens.
It happens. That's right.
Yep.
It's when it
Turn it
happens
into a
3 or 4
problem to
days in a
solve.
row. And then you're like, okay, well, maybe we need to change your flight series.
Oh,
We need to reevaluate a little bit.
Hang on.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're coming to a close.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think probably one of the things to remember going into this transition of the year is that remembering it's okay to have those down weeks. Like Ian said, we don't need to be constantly pushing. We need to recover at the same time. There might be some things that you need to be transitioning out of. Rob and Ian discussed when it comes to strength and conditioning. Remember to evaluate your gymnast's mental toughness at the time. What are they going through? Their anxiety? What stressors do they have? And if you don't know, maybe you should be communicating a little bit more with your gymnast because it makes a huge difference. So if you have any questions that relate to what you're supposed to be doing right now going into preseason, please let us know. We'd love to help you out. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with anyone that could benefit from this. So thank you for joining us here at the NGA podcast. And until next time, stay happy, healthy, and high performing.